What's up, guys? This is Dan Wilson, and this is the ddon.life podcast. I have no announcements to make, so I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to tell a story that happened this last Saturday, and I wasn't even planning on telling this story out of fear of maybe just ridicule or embarrassment, but whatever, it's like whatever. If you don't like it, then I can't do anything for you if you don't like it. I'm going to tell you a truthful account of my day this last Saturday. And I'm not that I'm even ashamed of anything. I'm not. I'm trying to fit this whole thing into 20 minutes, and when in reality, it will take me a lot longer to explain the whole situation. It all goes back to that movie, The Disclosure Project. Basically, it is the disclosure of E.T. presence on this earth. Now, it's going to help, and you're going to understand this podcast a lot more if you just go ahead to YouTube and watch, I think it's the 2013 Disclosure Project by Dr. Stephen Greer. There's another one, I think it's just called Serious Disclosure from 2008. And that one, I think it's technically the prequel, the one in 2008. But it's basically just like 20 different high clearance military officials coming out together because they have safety in numbers and telling their story about their UFO sightings, where they'll be in the plane and basically they'll be flying the plane and boom, a spaceship or whatever it is flies in front of them, does some crazy shit, and then zips off at like the speed of light. So you can go ahead and watch that, and they all give their testimony. You can judge it for yourself. Well, the 2013 movie, The Serious Disclosure Project, it was a little bit more of a documentary, and they have that little 6-inch alien, or the 6-inch unknown. They don't know what it is, but it was like a mummified skeleton. And you just go ahead and watch it. But anyways, the whole gist of the movie is that the idea is that Stephen Greer is leading people out to remote areas, and they've developed a protocol to make contact with what they're calling is ETs, extraterrestrials, even though he says they're interdimensional. So a lot of them, they're here on Earth, and they're outside of the frequency range that humans can detect with their 5 senses. So I watched the movie. It was a compelling enough where I wanted to give it a shot. You can download an app, and basically it's an app. On the app, it's got a guided meditation, and then it has these tones that they recorded. Apparently, they recorded out of crop circles. After they found a crop circle, it was making these noises, so someone recorded it. He was a crop circle researcher. And after he heard the reports of a crop circle, he went there and he recorded the sounds. And that's what's on this app, is those tones. So Stephen Greer developed these protocols for contact. And basically it goes like this. And again, watch the movie The Serious Disclosure Project. And it's on YouTube. There's a 2008, 2013 version. Just watch both of them. And then watch that movie Thrive, which is also on YouTube. But, so the protocol goes, you play the tones. You need some technology. You're supposed to have, a smartphone with the app, the ET Contact app, which I have. You're supposed to have a Bluetooth speaker. I have the Bose. I have a Bose Bluetooth speaker. And then you're supposed to have a shortwave radio, which I don't have, but you don't necessarily need one, apparently. Then you need a light source, like a really, what's ideal is one of those high-powered lasers, laser pointer things. But you got to be careful with those because you can get in trouble with shining them up into the sky. And then you just need what is it? It's like a electromagnetic frequency detector, which I do not have one of those. So I went out. I have just my app, a Bose Bluetooth speaker, and a flashlight. Basically, it's like one of those headlamps that you take camping, where you wrap it around your head and you can turn it on. It's like a bright light. So I had one of those. So this last Saturday, or every first Saturday of the month, is Global CSETI Day. CE5. Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. And what it means is there's, the different close encounters, but close encounters of the fifth kind is where it's human initiated contact. You go out and you do these contact protocols, and you're basically inviting the ETs to make contact with you. Okay? So every Saturday, first Saturday of the month, is Global CE5 Day. So I thought, not only have I seen the movie Sirius, but in my hours of just looking into this whole thing, researching it, I came across this dude from Minneapolis. He's actually from Red Wing, but he lives in Minneapolis, and he's a retired Army veteran. He did like underwater stuff for the Army. He was a diver. And long story short, he did a 13-part podcast where he was exploring this CE5 thing. And he went to meet Stephen Greer. He did what they call the ambassador program, where they go out into the national parks, super remote areas, and do the protocols. I highly recommend, after you watch the Sirius Project or the Disclosure Project, go ahead to your podcast app and download CE5 Minneapolis and listen to it's a good podcast. I mean, other than, even if you're not into the stuff like it's a good, well-produced podcast. So I heard that, and I saw that he and a few other people had started a CE5 group in Minneapolis, and they have a Facebook page. You can go to Facebook page and just look up CE5 Minneapolis, and it's just where they use the Facebook page to stay in touch with each other and to organize field work. Every first Saturday, they go out and they do these contact protocols. So I'm like, I want to do it, So they do it at Orono High School every first Saturday of the month. So I saw that they created the event on Facebook, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go out. I said I was interested, I think, on Facebook, but I didn't say I was going. I think 2 other people said they were going. And so I sent them messages, and I didn't hear back from anyone, but I went out there anyways. So I went out there anyways, and I got there, and I thought maybe I would see him there, but I didn't see anyone there. I had a chair with me. I had a blanket with me. I had, everything. My battery on my phone was full. I had the flashlight. I had the Bose speaker. I had bug spray, everything. It was just an absolutely beautiful night last Saturday. Perfect night. And I'm like, well, if no one else is there, because I couldn't get a hold of anyone, I'll just do it by myself, So I get there, And basically, it was just me. I couldn't find anyone else. There was like 2 other pars in the high school parking lot. And I'm just like, it's a perfectly beautiful night. Why not just go sit? If nothing happens, at least I get to go out, and I'm going to lay out in the middle of the field. And it was a completely clear night, and just look at the stars. And why not? I'm out here. It was like a half-hour drive. So I see that the gate is open, and I'm like, when I go through, I'm like, am I even supposed to be here? I'm like going on to the school field, and no one else is here, but the gate is open. So I'm like, whatever, just do it. So I go in, I make my way to the center of the field. And when I say field, it's like there's a football field, there's tennis courts, there's soccer fields, and then there's a couple baseball fields. And then in the center of it, like there's just like, some grass. It's a huge open field at Orono High School. So it's dusk, and it's just starting to get dark. And so I make my way to the center of the field. I kind of just get all my stuff organized, and I do a FaceTime with Omina, and I just like talk to her for a little bit. And she had to go. So she was in the car with some people going to a dinner or something, whatever. And so I'm like, all right, I'm here. I'm situated. I put on some bug spray. It's starting to get dark. So I put on the tones, and I'll play the tones for you right now. I didn't even think about doing this, but I have my phone right here, so I'll play them for you. And these are the crop circle tones. That's what they call them on the app. So yeah, they go on and on and on, and then it repeats. So part of and I'm not an expert at the protocols, but so you start with the tones. You're supposed to play them over a Bluetooth speaker and then into a shortwave radio and just send that signal out. Meanwhile, you can turn those off, and then you're starting to get ready. You do the guided meditation, which is also on the app, and that's recorded by Dr. Stephen Greer. So you play the tones, you basically set yourself up with the tones, you send them the signal out, and then the next step is to meditate. And the best way to do that is use the guided meditation. So when I was there, I played the tones for about 10, 15 minutes, just hanging out. And I said, all right, it's getting dark. I'm going to forget this chair. I have like a folding chair. And so I ditch the chair and I lay down with a blanket, and I get all snuggled up in the blanket, and then I put on the guided meditation. So by this time, like halfway through, it's completely dark out. It was a fairly new moon, so there was not much moonlight in the sky, although there was a lot of light coming from the school itself and the parking lot where I was parked. But the field I was in was pretty dark, and I was kind of facing the darker section of the field. So I'm laying in the field, listening to the meditation with my eyes closed, and I can start to just like, I'm getting in a really good meditative brain state. And I start picking up sounds from all directions. I can hear kids. There's kids over playing on the football field. I heard them get out of their car, and at this point I thought it might be other members of the CE5 group from Minneapolis, the CE5 Minneapolis group. But I heard them talking and walking their way down to the football field. So I was listening to them while I was there. I was listening to the cars on the nearby highway. I was listening to, like, I could hear people partying in the other direction, and wind and birds and crickets. And I was just like, I was picking up all these different sounds and focusing in on them. Meanwhile, I looked up and I saw like two really cool shooting stars just zipping by, really long tails, and it was pretty cool. So I put, at this point I put the tones back on really loud, and I start seeing moving objects. Like, the whole time I can see planes in the distance, but planes are very obvious. They have, two blinking lights on each wing, and a headlight or whatever, and probably a light on the tail too, and they're much lower in the sky. These things, I'm guessing, were satellites. Although, while I'm doing the tones, I start seeing moving things in the sky. It does, it piques my interest. And these things, I know they're not planes because they're way higher in the sky, and they look like little dots, like stars, the size of stars. I thought they were stars, and I caught they were moving slowly throughout the sky until they disappeared. So I saw like 2 or 3 of those going in different directions. But I know there's satellites up there, and I know you can see satellites. So I didn't really think too much of it. So I sat there for a good 30 minutes, and I was just gazing. The night was beautiful, but nothing else was happening, and I started getting just this anxious feeling, like, maybe someone's gonna come through. Like, maybe I'm zoning out pretty hard from the guided meditation tape, and I'm kind of like, am I even supposed to be here? Could a cop come through at any time? And I'd have to explain to him that I was, trying to contact extraterrestrials. And I stopped feeling so comfortable, and I started feeling really uneasy and anxious to get out of there. But I didn't want to give up either. But anyways, I did. I said, all right, it's time to go. It's getting late. What are my friends doing? So I am just packing up my stuff, and I use my headlamp. Oh yeah, and I didn't mention this. All the meanwhile, while I'm listening to tones, I'm flashing my light, my headlamp, into the sky, because that's the final part of the protocol, is that you flash light, and then the idea is that they're gonna flash light back at you to say hello. And then, as Stephen Greer says, once they flash their light, that's when you really try to meditate and go up with them, astral projectily, right? So, not physically, just in your consciousness, you try to go up with them. Anyway, so none of that happened. When it's time to go, and I just pull out my headlamp again, and I'm packing my stuff up, stuffing it into my backpack, and I turn on my light just to look at the ground and see if I dropped anything, because I was leaving. I had my keys, I had 2 cell phones, I have, my headphones, I have bug spray, I have the Bose speaker, I have charger cords. Anything could have dropped. I'm just checking the ground. And I get everything. I kind of look around, and I don't want to give up yet, so I'm still looking up into the sky, and while my light's on, I'm still flashing my light up into the sky, all different directions. And at this point, as I'm leaving, I'm 100%, or not 100%, but I was pretty sure I was completely alone. Okay? I was in the middle of a field. I was tuned into all the sounds. I heard the kids go to the soccer field. I heard them leave. I heard them, and then they squealed out in their car, and then they were gone. It was completely silent of human presence in the field. So that feeling of loneliness kind of got to me. I got anxious. It's kind of hard to describe the feeling. I felt like I needed to get out of there. And so I'm walking away. I'm still flashing my light into the sky and looking up into all directions. I'm spinning and looking up into all directions. So I'm heading back towards my car, and I take about 100 steps. I would say approximately 50 to 100 steps. And I look back, because I'm kind of still just looking all around, and I look back and I see what looks like a light right where I was laying, like right in the area where I was laying down. And my first reaction was like, is that a firefly? Because it looks like just a glowing light. And I'm like, there's no fireflies here. And then I'm like, did I drop one of my phones? And then it's like someone's calling it, and it's lighting up. And that's why it's lighting up. And I'm just like, it doesn't look like a phone. It looks like a light. So I flash at that point when that happened, I had my light turned off, my headlamp. So there was this little piece in my head like, what is it? And so I turn my headlamp on and I point it right at the point where I saw the light. It kind of looked like a dim flashlight, maybe a cell phone flashlight. But it happened so fast, I don't really remember. I 100% sure there was a light, though. So I flash my light back at it, turn off the light. So basically what happened is I saw a light, it turned off. I turned on my light, flashed it at it, and then I turned off my light. And I'm like completely staring, kind of creeping back towards it. And then boom, a very bright light, like a very bright flashlight, turns on right where I was laying. Right at me. Pointing it right at me. Responding to my flashlight. I turn my flashlight on, turn it off, boom, it turns its flashlight on, and then turns it off. At that point, I was just fucking freaked out. Because no matter what it was, I was sure I was alone. So my first reaction was like, I didn't know someone. I can't believe someone else is in this field with me. I'm sure I would have heard it or even seen them. I mean, it wasn't that dark. But yeah, my heart just kind of dropped. And I had no idea what it was. I was I'm not 100% sure. I was like 85% sure that I was in that field by myself. Obviously, I wasn't. But again, I had that underlining feeling like I shouldn't be there. And, maybe I'm trespassing or I'm breaking some rules. So I'm like, I'm not going back and confronting a cop with a flashlight to be like, hey, who are you? And they're like, hey, I'm a cop. So I'm just like, get out of there. So I kind of hurried up to my car, And my mind state was still pretty calm because I did that guided meditation. And so I get into my car, and then I realize there's another parking lot that's kind of closer to the area I was. So before leaving, I drove over to the other parking lot, and I flashed my high beams down just to see if I could see anybody. I couldn't. I got kind of an eerie feeling, and I got the fuck out of there, and I took off. And to this day, a couple days later, I don't know what it was. I didn't know that there was anyone else in that field with me. I didn't hear them. I didn't see them. It was just such a weird moment because if they were ETs, it wasn't coming from the sky. It was coming from, they were there with me the whole time I was meditating and like talking to them. They were there sitting with me. And then as soon as I got far enough away, they signaled to me. I forgot to mention this part. As I was leaving, I vocally said out loud, "Hey, can you give me something? Can you give me some sort of sign that, I came out here to say hi. If you're here, can you say hi to me?" And that's when, like a few seconds later, that's when the light flashed. And then I flashed my light back at it, and then it flashed its light back at me. And it didn't sink in at first, but as I was driving home, I was freaked the fuck out. And I slept with the light on that night. And I had really weird dreams. I actually had a dream, just weird dreams. I won't get into it, but it was weird and vivid. And that was my CE5 story at Orono High School. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd love to hear your, what you think of this. If you want to talk shit, that's cool as well.